Hello everybody, Aimer back with another Mission Impossible video. I had a very interesting experience today. I was actually able to speak with Peter Lupus. Again, this is the second time. I found his number, spoke to him once briefly, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, just kind of introduced myself, hopefully, I guess I assured him that I wasn't just a weirdo. And so I left him a message, and amazingly, he called me back. What a wonderful person he is. And I just cannot say enough about how good it made me feel to speak to him. This time I was able to actually spend a little bit of time. It wasn't a very long conversation. It was maybe about 8 or 9 minutes. But I was able to ask Mr. Lupus some questions just about his experience on the show. And I'm going to share some of those things with you in this video. But it gave me the idea, and it's something that I had actually thought about before, but now I have some kind of meat to put to it, in terms of making a video for the best of Peter Lupus from the original series. I went back through the episodes and through my recaps and found some interesting things, and like I said, you'll hear me talk all about it as we go through this. But I was actually able to find 20 episodes, plus one honorable mention, where Willy actually has some prominence. And I'll kind of explain it as I go along. It seems like in every season, there was some reason that Willy was always shuffled to the back of the deck. In season 1, the producers were experimenting with different ideas for the show and different lineups, and there were, there was a fair amount of guest stars and guest agents and specialty agents and that sort of thing. And many of the scripts and missions didn't even need the quote-unquote big guy. And Willy, and by extension Peter Lupus, was basically kind of pigeonholed into that role. So if he wasn't necessary, well, he was kind of, left off to the side, sadly. From my conversation with Peter, I asked him, does he have a favorite episode or a moment or a memory from the show that he would like to share? And Peter's response was that given that now he's 90 years of age, he doesn't have a lot of recollection of specifics from the series. So sadly, he didn't really have an answer to give me. Anyway, let's get this going. So as I mentioned, 20 episodes in which Willy is more than just the quote-unquote big guy. Number 20, Season 1, Episode 25, Shock. Willy gets one interesting scene in this one, where the IMF has set up a big store as part of the mission. 2 curious kids trip the building's alarm, forcing Willy to pretend to be a vagrant who's in the building for shelter. Fortunately for the IMF, the innocent young boys buy the story. And this is actually the most acting Peter Lupus does in Season 1. Sadly, the rest of his time in Season 1 is just kind of being the big guy, doing his usual kind of, right, Jim, yeah, everything's going okay. Very minimal and often meaningless dialogue. Number 19, Season 5, Episode 7, Butterfly. In this Season 5 outing that is ostensibly based in Japan, Willy plays his usual role as the big guy, and he's there purely for his size. But in this one, he's featured for a bit in a jiu-jitsu match, which serves as a distraction at a key moment in the story. I count this one because no one else could have possibly pulled this off. So good on Willy here. Number 18, Season 4, Episode 14, The Falcon. In this one, Willy's mostly there to move and lift the heavy stuff, But he does get one scene where he delays the impending royal wedding to keep the officiating priest away from the palace, which is actually a pretty funny bit. After that, he's back to the usual role of being an extra pair of hands for Barney. Number 17, Season 4, Episode 2, The Numbers Game. Willy gets to be a lawyer instead of a soldier or an adjunct grunt for Barney because the IMF uses a repertory for that stuff. Sadly, this is not really a big role for him, which it ordinarily would be in other plots, but it is very different, and it's really the first one where Willy gets to step out of the usual type of role that he has to fill. Number 16. Season 7, Episode 10, Ultimatum. Here we move on to some episodes where Willy gets to do a fair bit of work to keep the plot moving, but it's basically in support of the others. In this case, he's a mechanic at a rest stop, basically supporting Jim and Mimi, who are driving the action a little bit. In this one, the action is mostly driven by the antagonist, which is also something to consider here. He does get a chance to kind of save the day a little bit when a bad guy has Jim in his sights. As kind of an interlude, I'll say that Willy's contribution does improve a bit in seasons 6 and 7 because there are only 4 agents rather than 5, or in some rare cases 6. But in many cases, he's still in the background doing necessary but not flashy tasks in favor of, Linda Day George getting the spotlight in many episodes. In speaking to Peter, I asked him if he was in contact with any of the other living cast members from the show. I'll speak about Barbara Bain a little bit later, but Peter confirmed that he is not in contact with any of the other ladies such as Leslie Warren, Barbara Anderson, or Linda Day George. He did confirm, however, our strong suspicion that Leslie Warren just didn't feel like a great fit for the show overall, in his opinion. She was very professional and, didn't have anything bad to say about her. But he said that, yes, she did kind of seem like a fish out of water. And Linda Day George clicked much better with the cast. Moving on to the countdown. Number 15, Season 5, Episode 16, The Missile. This is similar to Butterfly, which I mentioned. Willy is there basically for his size, but he does get a very unique moment in the limelight in this one, as he has to use his strength to rescue Barney from a door trap. Unfortunately, after that, he's basically a potted plant. Number 14, Season 7, Episode 14, Incarnate. Willy gets a bit of an enhanced role in this one as a doctor who, has to play having a liking for Casey, in addition to doing the usual big guy stuff. He does figure prominently in some very key scenes towards the end of the episode as it builds to its climax. Number 13, Season 6, Episode 14, The Connection. Willy gets to play multiple roles here, and alongside the usual stuff, he gets to be a rival drug lord who interacts with the heavies. Again, he does have to do a lot of the usual big guy stuff, being a driver and running interference for certain things, but he gets some other good scenes here. Number 12, Season 7, Episode 9, Hit. Willy plays several roles in this one, including a key one in getting the target's henchman Murdoch to provide critical information to finish the mission. And in addition, he has a fair bit of stuff in a prison setup, as well as being a doctor. So not a bad outing for Peter Lupus in this one. Number 11, Season 6, Episode 7, Encounter. Willy gets to do a fair bit here, similar to the previous entry, including infiltrating the bad guys for an explosion job alongside some other hoods, where he's kind of separated from the team for a little while. But a lot of the episode is just the usual protecting Casey and the rest of the big guy stuff. When I went back over the recaps to look for episodes where Willy plays a prominent or interesting role, I was really surprised at what I saw. I've only got 20 episodes here, plus one honorable mention, as I said, in which you could say that Willy does something out of the ordinary. That's 1/8 or 12% of the episodes. For so many of the recaps and notes that I made, most of the time when I would search for Willy, it was always "and Willy." Barney and Willy do this. Jim and Willy go here. Or Willy is just there for his strength to carry stuff, bring Barney into a facility in some kind of, secret container or that sort of thing, transport something, or whatever. And what a shame that is. From Peter, from my conversation with him, he was approached to appear in the Revival series. I asked him about that because I was really curious about it, given that Greg Morris and Linda Day George did appear in the Revival. He said that yes, he was asked. Peter Graves did ask him, but by that time he was basically retired, except for some very, very light duty. So he declined the offer. What could have been? Back to the countdown. Number 10, Season 5, Episode 22, The Party. This one starts out with Willy doing the usual deliver Barney inside a building thing, but the main highlight is when he engineers a key interference sequence to allow the IMF to get important people into the said building without being seen by others at a very critical point. And even though, again, not such a flashy thing, it was so important to the plot, and it's pulled off really, really well. Number 9, Season 3, Episode 16, The Glass Cage. This one is really, as I just mentioned in the interlude there, a Barney and Willy episode, because they basically do everything together. But the two of them have a fantastic sequence where they get out of a prison cell and into a high security area through, a great physical sequence, and then they get back to the cell in order to complete the mission after the other three members have basically kind of set everything up. This one is great fun, and it's great to watch Peter Lupus in this one. Number 8, Season 7, Episode 11, Kidnap. All of the main cast have a good showing in this one because of the nature of the plot, where Jim is basically the one who's kidnapped, and the other 3 IMF members have to basically rescue him. But it counts. Willy's main role here is as a doctor assisting Casey in an elaborate key-snatching job that is critical to the plot, in addition to doing the other, not-so-flashy tasks that are necessary. Number 7, Season 4, Episode 8, Mastermind. This one puts Willy in a nice set of key roles at critical points, including taking out one of the targets in an elevator, and then later as a drug-dealing chemist. This is one where ordinarily he would just kind of be Barney's helper, but he manages to get into some really good and fitting roles here, and I really like his performance in this one. Number 6, Season 2, Episode 5, The Slave. This one is up here just because of the sheer volume of work that Willy has to do. Most of it is in support of the others, but his presence is so key so they can do their jobs and maneuver around the bad guys and even take them out when necessary. This is one that shows that, without having somebody like Willy to do a lot of the grunt work, some missions just could not possibly happen. Season 5, of course, had Willy frequently absent in favor of Sam Elliott, but surprisingly, when he is around in Season 5, generally he gets a fairer shake than usual. However, just as often, he's just protecting Leslie Warren or something like that. Even beyond that, there are so many episodes where Willy is just a glorified placeholder or the extra guy. In Season 4, where I was expecting at least a few episodes I could point to as being good for Willy, Leonard Nimoy's presence on the show seems to have kind of set him back. And when he does get a decent amount of screen time, it's usually just because of the amount of work that needs to be done overall, like I just mentioned in the season 2 episode, The Slave. Speaking of seasons 2 and 3, in looking at the recaps, it's really striking how so much of the focus on those episodes was on the Landows, Martin and Barbara. In reviewing the recaps, even Greg Morris was nearly always relegated to gadget duty in those seasons, and Willy was there whenever he needed an extra pair of hands. One of the things I asked Peter about whether he was still in contact with Barbara Bain, and he said that yes, he was until recently, when the number that he had for Barbara has been disconnected. She seems to have made the decision to stop taking calls from people for whatever reason. He did say that he checked with the Screen Actors Guild. She's still with us and healthy, but they're not in contact anymore. Back to the countdown. Number 5, Season 6, Episode 9, Invasion. Willy gets a good showing here. In addition to the usual helping Barney get things moving that he almost always does, Willy heavily figures into the ending, where he performs key tasks at the airport, as well as having an excellent fight scene at the very end to bring the episode to a close. Number 4, Season 5, Episode 15, Cat's Paw. This is not one that I originally thought of when thinking of prominent Willy roles, but he gets to do a lot of the work that Barney would typically do, because Barney has a different kind of role in this episode, which is personal for him, trying to avenge the murder of his brother. So he operates in this mission in a very, very different way than usual. Willy gets to set up and use most of the gadgetry in this one, while Greg Morris is doing other things. And this late Season 5 episode puts Leonard Nimoy in a reduced role. And Peter Lupus got the benefit of that and does an admirable job. Number 3, Season 4, Episode 3, The Controllers. Willy starts this one off doing the usual setup tasks, but then takes a huge role in this two-parter subplot where he portrays a test subject for the story's mind-control drug, then as a guard to help facilitate the IMF's escape, among other things which are very, very critical to the plot. Great outing for Peter Lupus here. He doesn't get a lot of dialogue, but he gets quite a bit of action. Number 2, Season 7, Episode 3, The Deal. This one has Willy start out doing reconnaissance work, but he's found out and takes the oft-used bullet in the shoulder that was very frequent in Season 7. But he recovers, and despite being separated from the rest of the IMF, he's able to get himself together and spins a wonderful yarn at a key point, which results in an excellent misdirection play that helps the mission succeed. Not only that, but despite his injury, even one-handed, he's able to assert himself physically and make his way to safety. This is really, really cool stuff and a great outing for Peter Lupus. Before I get to number 1, last interlude here. An honorable mention for this list is Season 5, Episode 3, The Innocent. Willy does a fair bit of work in this one, but it's mostly the menial type of stuff that we've talked about. And Doug is in this episode. He's really the one who's part of the action and, doing stuff with the team. Of course, Willy being somewhat careless in the beginning of this episode is sort of what sets the episode off in the first place, and not really in a positive way. Final note from my conversation earlier today with Mr. Lupus. He referred to the press conference for the first Mission Impossible movie. And he confirmed that the regulars from the series were supposed to be part of the movie. I didn't even ask him about this. He just kind of spontaneously remembered this and told me about this as we were talking. He says that at that press conference, it turned out that Barbara Bain was actually Tom Cruise's height. And that was one of the first things he noticed during the press conference. Of course, all of the other actors were way taller. So Tom Cruise basically said, no, we're not having these folks in the movie. And the rest is history. So here we are, number 1. Season 6, Episode 20, Double Dead. Similar to The Deal, Willy gets himself into trouble because this time, the IMF, for some inexplicable reason, doesn't give him a way to stay in contact with them and warn him of impending danger. But this allows Willy to have a great limelight subplot with really meaningful scenes that keep us interested in this otherwise pathetic episode. Without that subplot, this would have just been absolutely terrible. He works really well with the sympathetic nurse Peño, played by Irene Sue, and Peter gets a fine opportunity to show that he can be more than just the big guy. Well, there you have it. 20 episodes plus one honorable mention where Peter Lupus gets some time to shine. Mr. Lupus did tell me today that he's going to be away for some time. He's going on vacation. I do hope to touch base with him again when he returns and get some more insight into his experiences on the show. You know, being at the age that he's at and, you know, the time that has elapsed, you know, I'm sure that he's not going to be able to give us too much in the way of specific details, which we would love to have. But even the tidbits that he was able to give me are tremendous, in my opinion. And like I said, I certainly hope to be able to share more of that with you when and if the possibility arises. Thank you guys very much for watching. Please like this video. Of all the videos I've done, I think that this is definitely going to be one of the most special just because of the nature of it and the genesis of it. So please do like it. And please, I do urge you to subscribe. I was toying with the idea of making this a subscribers only video. I really don't want to do that because this is a labor of love for me. And I really do just want to share my feelings with other fans. But I really would appreciate the subscriptions. They will help me and they'll help this channel with the YouTube algorithm. So please, if you haven't subscribed, I would ask you to do that. It will really help me create more videos like this. And I certainly do intend to. And please leave your comments about this and other videos that I've made. If there are other episodes that you remember and you think that, you know what, hey, you missed that one. Willy was really good in that one too. I'd like to hear what you have to say. Thank you guys again, and I will see you next time.